Because you jumped over
And
to Force of Will because of the resource system, didn't you?
yeah, in 2015, I was I was still playing Legacy, and I was like the guy that would go to a card shop and create a Legacy scene. And at the time, Legacy was something that you could still work into buying into.
Yeah.
Like Modern was a thing, but it was kind of like, yeah, whatever. Who wants to play with weak cards? We got Legacy over here. And dual lands were still non-blue ones were under $100, so it was still like if you were a teenager. Like I talked to a couple like high school kids or university kids, and we're like, yeah, if you save up like your part-time job money, like you can pick these up on the side, and after a year or two, you can have a serious Legacy deck. But obviously that changed. But
Yeah.
what basically happened was it just I played a game of I played a tournament of Magic and just got land screwed out of not playing the game. And then shortly thereafter, someone was like, "Hey, why don't you give this game a try? It's Force of Will and $20 for a starter deck, whatever." Picked it up with my buddy. We
Were
played it.
the Alice decks out at that point?
Say it again.
Were the Alice decks out at that point?
Yes, it was exactly that. It was the Alice starter decks, and I played I think one game, and the resource system combined with I didn't do it correctly, but I understood the judgment system, and I loved the mechanical complexity of choosing when to do it. And honestly, that's one thing that I don't know how you feel about it, but one of the biggest disappointments of competitive Force of Will is finding out that a great deal of the game mechanics were basically irrelevant because the best things to do were very linear and kind of streamlined.
Or shut them
And
down?
it was like, I mean, play, reflect, refrain. He's the best ruler. Like, don't judgment for basically any other ruler. There's no reason to play them.
Yeah.
And it really disappointed me. On top of the fact that I hate games that don't have appropriate answers to threats. Whatever those threats may be, whether it's rulers, whether it's lands and magic, whatever. I don't like games where the threats are way too strong and there is no effective answers. So, like, when Regalia came out, there was no way to get rid of them.
I still
That
argue that was a form of evasion.
it,
They should have been
it,
Edition J rules.
it absolutely, and I get it. Like there's theming to it or whatever, but
Oh, that's
like
something that pisses me off with Force of Will, especially as it evolved and they kind of went there, then didn't, and it went all over the place. The game has very, very rich theming, and I think it's very, very, very prominent in the appeal of the game. As soon as you get to
absolutely
competitive play, it's not really there.
no, it falls off. And I
And they
would
don't follow
you
up on
say
things, at least historically.
Oh, that was I've spoken with AG multiple times about that driving me insane. And that was actually in my original business plan was like go back, revisit stuff, and that's I mean, again, everything Force does is good idea, bad execution.
Yeah.
But like the Return to New Valhalla was supposed to be like, hey, we remember these things, but then don't support anything. But anyways, yeah. So got into that and that basically jumping into Force of Will was kind of the beginning of the end for me.
Mm.
I stopped playing Magic. I was into Force of Will. I started working for Force of Will. I stopped playing basically games altogether outside of just like previewing stuff, and that was it. And then when I left Force, I was kind of done with card games for a bit. And
Yeah.
obviously, like Tenchoku was on my mind as like, uh, how would I do Force kind of thing. And I I think for the goals I set out for, I'm very happy with Tenshoku in terms of like how legends work compared to rulers, how like bigger threats are viable to play, how like some of like the key components that I wanted to see, hand traps are a thing, and like viable and almost necessary, but still I think like a good trade-off of you can play around all of them in a very reasonable way. So I'm very happy with what I did with that, but it also kind of outside of almost don't even count Tenshoku as a card game in a way for me because it's also so much more than that. It's kind of a
You're emotionally
passion.
invested.
Yeah. And it wasn't until a year into the pandemic I was working on Gamma and I heard about pre-modern. And that was kind of my re-falling in love with Magic as a whole, but then also just card games in general. And I think, you know what I think back to a lot, actually? I don't know if you even remember this, but in 2018, I did an AMA, I think, and we had a little argument, and I don't even remember what it was about, but it was relatively design based.
Yeah.
And that was our first interaction, I think. Or at least like meaningful one-on-one back and forth interaction.
Yeah, I think it was. I did do a bit of the streams with Jordan. I actually
Okay.
was recapping them under a different name on the Reddit for quite some time. And
Gotcha.
yeah,
Like I remember back then I remember like had a very different you were still working on Hyper Juken, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
But it had a very different like design approach, and obviously like you've learned so much since then, and I have too. But like I think around the same time I fell in love with pre-modern, I also and had been working on Tenshoku. It kind of hit me that I wanted to advocate more for more games. I fell in love with games again, so to speak. And maybe it was just age, timing, whatever, but I don't think I could have appreciated like Hyper Juken, a game with the rule set is so alien to me, or I could have appreciated a lot of even modern Pokemon or a lot of modern Magic design. I wouldn't be able to appreciate them in the same way I can today, or even Force of Will, which I don't like the design, but I understand why people do. And I think I needed that kind of break from playing, from everything, to really kind of fall back into it. And I would say now, like, I have no interest in competitive tournament level card games anymore.
but you
I
wouldn't have
like
the
playing
time
like
with your with kids and work and everything.
yeah, it's just like to me, my ideal is like I'm happy to go to like a 3-round event, round robin, where we all go and have a beer afterwards. Like
Yeah.
that to me that's what card games kind of were at the beginning for me when I got into it, minus the beer. And now kind of at the other end of it, they're that again. And obviously I do my card game work for like education side of it, but that to me is very it's almost not even a game. That's like research, and those are much more mechanical. Like I have a very specific function I need the game to do, and it has to fulfill these requisites and language level and XYZs.
This was a clip from the Extra Deck podcast. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, comment, and subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot. Also, be sure to check out my card game, Hyper Juken. It's the one with the wrestling, and the animals, and the key blasts. Every purchase of Hyper Juken not only supports the channel, but helps get the following sets produced. Thanks for watching.